My name's Linda K. Little Chief, and my tribe is the Kiowa tribe. I am 5/8 Kiowa and 3/8 Apache. I work at the Delaware Nation Cultural Preservation Program as the events coordinator. The grandmother's class that we started for February actually was our first class of the year of 2018. And the inspiration for Grandma's Apron is that everybody had a grandma. And so our native grandmas are very knowledgeable of the traditional histories that we should be knowledgeable of today. And so from that teaching or from that class, I was wanting to inspire families to bring back that history, to retain something that they taught us back in the day so that we can give this to our future generations.
It brings us together, a group of women that can share sewing techniques and stories of our grandmothers that taught us different ways to prepare food. My name is Judith De La Rosa, maiden name Yekiani. I'm from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I'm the daughter of Gladys Yekiani and granddaughter to Bessie Snake. I'm a member of the Delaware tribe of Oklahoma. My grandmother Bessie's the one I'm the closest to. And one of the things that I remember as a young girl, she would always take the pots and pans out from underneath the cabinet, and she'd wash them out, just rinse them in the sink and wipe them out, and then she'd start filling them. One day I asked her, I said, "Grandmother," I said, "why do you always rinse out the utensils? They're already clean." And she laughed. She said, "It's an old Delaware story. We believe that when we're asleep at night, the spirits come into the house. They touch the pots and pans. They touch glasses or whatever that you drink out of. This way, when we wash them and rinse them out and wipe it, it takes away whatever they may have touched." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "So you believe that our ancestors who have gone on come back to look for food that might have been left out or to see if what we're cooking?" She said, "That's right. Normally we would prep our food before we go to church." She was a very, very stern Christian person. So we'd cook our chicken, our green beans, and then we'd leave it on the stove. When we come back from church, we would start setting the table. But everything was always, she'd be rinsing something, wiping things down. It was very clean, very clean. She's a very good cook, too. 40 years we'd have Sunday dinner. And the significance of that is that all of the cousins and uncles and son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, aunts and uncles would all eat together on Sunday. And the women from each family would bring like a covered dish. My grandmother would serve the main dish, which was the meat. She'd have roast and chicken and meatloaf, you name it. It was just like going to a restaurant. And it was always tradition in the Delaware family, the men would eat first. They served the men first. And then they'd put the children on the end, let them eat too. And the women ate last and would tell stories of who made this dish, or what you put in it, and get recipes. And then we'd talk about what happened that week, or we'd talk about something that was about to happen or coming up, things that were going on.
My name is Anne Marie Watkins Pemberton, and I'm a member of the Delaware tribe of Western Oklahoma. I was very blessed to be raised around my maternal grandmother. She lived about a half a mile from us, and growing up as children, we would go by her house to the river every day. Spent a lot of time with her. She was a gardener and a medicine woman, and she would sew and cook. I was very blessed to have a grandmother who felt it was important to teach me how to quilt and sew and can and cook and sit down and visit, and sometimes just to sit and be quiet. She instilled work ethic, to be honest and to work hard, to always give your best. And those are things that I think that are very important to me, that I try to teach my children and my grandchildren and now my great-granddaughter. I was able to teach the class on making the apron, our grandmother's apron. And my grandmother never wore pants. She always had a dress on with an apron. So the apron had a real significance to me because she always had her little trinkets, her thimble and needle and all the little things that I relate to my grandmother in her pockets. When we did the aprons the other night, one of the things we told them is that we're going to attach something of significance of our grandmothers to the apron. And so next week it's going to be exciting to see what everybody brings. Mine was a pin that my mother wore whenever I grew up. And there's buttons that were my grandmother's that came off of an old dress that are going to go onto mine.
We can take pictures and stories and we can take medallions or whatever we have or ribbons and put it on these aprons in representation of our grandmother. A piece of her is with us, whether she's gone on or not.
I'm Soraya Dion Taylor Pemberton. My grandmother is Anne Marie Pemberton. I was raised with my grandma, and I just want people to know how special she really is to me. She's taught me how to be spiritual and loving. Whenever we started the class, we did introductions, and I told them that she taught me how to be kind and care, and she taught me a lot of traditional stuff with our tribe, and she's the one that taught me a lot during my princess reign. She works with people with disabilities, so she's teaching me how to be patient, and I know that as a grandmother you have to be patient, so I've really tried to work on my patience, and she's taught me how to cook traditional foods. She's teaching me how to make our traditional blouses.
My name is Inga Burkhart, and I am a Delaware tribal member, but we are also Caddo. I work in cultural preservation, and I am the events coordinator assistant. My grandmother's name was Marilyn Parton Burkhart. Her middle name was Frances, and everyone called her Franny, Aunt Franny. Her mother was Stella Ellis Parton. My grandmother was one of the last few people to know how to make the original Delaware moccasin and regalia. She showed Ann Pemberton, my Aunt Lisa. She had polio when she was little, so one of her legs were shorter, so she couldn't just always stand. So she would always make her dough, no measurements, no nothing, just all together. And then I got the job of standing on the stove, flipping. Yeah, she taught us a lot though, and I'm very grateful to have been raised by her and learn my Native American culture because I did not carry that on to my girls. My grandma was the rock of our family. She held us all together, and she always told us to look after one another and to be there for one another. And now that she's gone, it's not like that anymore. Something that was really big with her was genealogy, because we're Mormon and they're really into the genealogy. And my grandmother kept records of who was married to who, how many kids they had, birth dates. She has people that aren't even our relatives or our folks, tribal members. And I have a lot of those books at home put away, just stuff that I kept of hers, but it's all there.
My name is Sunny Kichai Allen. I am on the Delaware roll, but I'm also Caddo and Wichita descendancy. I am the Culture Preservation Director for the Delaware Nation. I wasn't raised traditionally. I knew more of my Caddo side. I still know more of my Caddo side than I do my Delaware side. I had two grandmothers that were very special to me. My Caddo grandmother, her name was Donna Hernandez, is the one who taught me how to cook, taught me how to make my fry bread. She was a really good influence in my life. She was a good friend. My grandmother on my Delaware side, my dad's mom, she was a white lady. Her name was Juanita Louise Sellers. She married my grandfather, Robert Kichai, and she did a lot of the traditional clothing. She made a lot of the Caddo clothes, the dresses, the shirts. My favorite things with her was watching her sew, watching her turn nothing into something just beautiful. It didn't matter what she had, she could always make it work. I feel that it's important to know how to make the regalia so it doesn't die out. I'd like for my kids to know more of their Delaware heritage than I did, more of our Delaware traditional ways. It gives you a sense of pride being able to make those.
Heather Hokie Smith. I'm enrolled Kiowa, Caddo, Delaware, Ponca, and Lakota Sioux. So whenever I've come and I brought my children, I'd like for them to learn all the cultural differences and what we have and what they don't know right now. My great-great-grandma, her name's Gina A. Potty Ware. Everybody says I portray her a lot in different characteristics that I have. She died whenever I was 11. Whenever she had passed away, my great-grandma took care of me. My grandma had a part of taking care of me, but my great-grandma was my big influence in my life. My great-great-grandmother, Gina, she taught me what was right from wrong. She taught me that I needed to always be kind to my brothers. And I'm the oldest out of all my siblings. I have no sisters, it's just me and my brothers. So I would sit there and I would learn different things from her, and then I would teach my brothers the same things. Whenever she had passed away, then my great-grandma was a big influence. Her name is Cornelia Jean Ware. My great-grandma is the one that took me in whenever my dad and my mom wasn't taking me in. My mom was sick a lot. My dad had left us. She took care of me. She's the one that taught me how to sew. She taught me how to clean. She taught me how to cook. She taught me whatever I was supposed to do whenever I go to people's houses. I'm always supposed to shake their hands. I'm always supposed to give them hugs. Whenever someone is down, I'm supposed to go visit them. Whenever they're in need, I'm supposed to help them. If they're family and you don't know them, they're still your family. Whenever she had passed away, all of our family gatherings, they weren't family gatherings anymore. All of my grandmother's siblings all stretched and they went apart. She'd always help out everybody. She would always show love to everyone.
My grandmother was Alice Jones Littleman. She was a full-blooded Kiowa, and she was born at it was called Old Town here in Anadarko. It's located north of Anadarko, behind the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There was an old, grounds out there. So she was born in 1910, and she grew up in this local area all her life. Beadwork, basically, is what her main occupation was. She started when she was a young child from her mother, and so she instilled that into us. And she always told me that you'll never starve if you know how to do this. And that's very true. She went to school up until the 8th grade, like I said, and she quit and she started working out in the fields and stuff like that to help with the family. She didn't have a formal education, but she was very intelligent, very business-minded, very on point. So she taught us the value of traditional life. We were very well knowledgeable about the powwow etiquette, the drum, the songs. She would sing the songs to us, and one of the main things that I really enjoyed was when she was beadworking, what she would tell us, it was called same-day stories. So same-day was the character for the Kauwika tribe, and it may have been for other tribes, but I don't know what they call him. He's called a trickster. Same-day means the trickster. The little songs that she taught us, every one of my grandchildren know that song. We were living in Dallas with my dad during the relocation program, and then so my dad brought us back to my grandmother because that was the only mother he ever knew. His mother passed away, and that was her half-sister, and she had asked her to take care of her children. And so there was 5 of us. I was the baby. I have 4 older sisters, so there was 5 girls. We had no brothers, and so she took us all in, kind of like a foster placement. So from that point on, she began to care for us and raise us, and that's why we were there with her. You still see grandparents raising their grandkids, but they didn't have the luxury of living in that traditional world. And so I want to help maintain some of that to continue in this time and age now, that my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will have a history of how we were raised and where they came from, some type of identity in their life.
The one important advice that I'd like to offer is that if your grandmother is still with you and among you, you can be near them or close to them or even see them. The younger generation needs to get as much stories and traditions told to them so that they remain in existence for a long, long time. The other day I drove up to the middle school to go pick up my granddaughter. She's in music class. She sings in a choir. And I went to go pick her up, and as we were driving back across the middle school, there were 3 Indian boys. They all had a drum, and they were beating on that drum and singing. I said, I want you boys to keep doing that. Keep singing, keep drumming, because today in our time, it's very rare that you see young boys doing that.
If you have a grandmother that has taught you something, take time to learn. I told her, I said, Grandma, let's pick a day this week, and on that day, I'll get all the kids in and we'll sit down and tell same day stories. I want you to tell them these stories, teach them the language, and we never did it. We were too busy with life, and so I lost out on that. My children lost out on it, and I'm looking around for other people to have that information for me. Some people do, some people don't, but they're not like what my grandmother told. There's so many things I regret that I don't have enough time to tell you. Learning how to tan hides was one of them. She's taught me how to beadwork. She's taught all my sisters how to beadwork. We work with the buckskin all the time. We have to buy it commercially from other people. We could have learned how to make it on our own, but we chose not to take the time to do that. So that's my advice to the future generations. Please take time to learn about your culture, learn about your heritage, and pass it on. Pass it on, because if we don't pass this on, it's going to die.
I used to get frustrated with my grandma because she'd tell me things over and over and over. And sometimes I'd stop her and I'd be like, you already told me that. But now I would give anything for her to hear, to tell me one of her stories again. Back then I thought I had better things to do, and I did not sit down and learn those things. And they really would have helped me in my position right now.
Pay attention. Listen to them while they're here and they're willing to show you, because once they're gone, they take it with them. And if you don't pay attention then, it's lost. It's those special times that we don't realize are so special when we're young, but the older we get and when they're not here, we realize that they were taken for granted.
Love them, give them hugs and kisses, because they might not be here tomorrow. Love your family like it's gonna be the last time you see them. Always kiss them, always hug them, always tell them you love them.
I know a lot of kids my age like to argue, that especially with their grandparents who are raising them. Their grandmother is like a really important part of their life. They teach them everything they need to know, the value of love and kindness. Don't take it for granted. Enjoy every moment of it. There will be ups and downs and a lot of fights, but it's all gonna build who you are and who you're gonna become.
Write down the things that your grandmothers tell you. Sometimes just sit and be quiet. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. You just need to listen to the life things that are being taught. And sometimes it's not even verbally. I learned a lot of things from my grandmother by watching her. She worked really hard in everything that she did. Her home was always immaculate. Everything she did, she was articulate in doing it. And I have a lot of those skills because she taught my mother and my mother taught me. And I'm trying to teach, my daughter, my granddaughter, and now my great-granddaughter. So I tell the youth, if you have grandparents, and particularly your grandmother, to cherish that, because there are so many youth that don't have grandparents, and particularly grandmothers. I think that it's a rare commodity nowadays, and I took it for granted because I grew up with my maternal grandmother. She lived down the road from me, and then when she got older, she lived with us, and I took care of her. She nurtured me, and I was able to reciprocate that in providing the care for her in the end. And I was grateful for that. And I hope that if I give advice to my daughter and granddaughter, it's, to cherish that. Make time for your grandmothers. Make time, because that time is very short and it's very precious. I really think it's important for us as grandmothers, those of us that are, to instill those same qualities to our children, to our grandchildren, in particular our granddaughters, and teach them about being honest and working hard and enjoying life along the way.